we'll keep our eyes on that. Let's keep this moving forward because we want to talk about the EPL teams and the format. Now, I think I just heard the lovely noise. I think I did. Okay, no, never mind. That's not what I thought it was. Prof, what you linked before in Discord, do you have that handy by any chance to throw to Lucas? So we can show. I can find it. It's all right. But basically, while I'm bringing this up,
the playoff format.
Yeah, I was looking at it earlier today, so I can bring it up. Lucas, I need to join TeamSpeak to link this to you. But for those who aren't too familiar, Pro League has been announced. It's just the one global league again, right? Like we're not talking about any of this stuff going on with split regions. It appears that they want to be doing things as everybody involved. So I've just linked this to Lucas. He'll bring this up on screen. And I'll quickly read through this for all of our audio listeners. You guys can see it, and then we'll have a bit of a chat. So season 13, there's 12 partner teams. They're listed very clearly here. You have Astralis, Complexity, Ents, Evil Geniuses, FaZe Clan, Fnatic, G2, Mouse Sports, Na'Vi, NIP, Liquid, and Vitality. And then we have 10 teams who were invited based off of the world rankings, and those invites were made on the 21st of the 12th, 2020. So where these teams were in those world rankings as the 21st of the 12th last year. So here they have listed Heroic, Big, Furia, OG, Virtus Pro, Gambit, Cloud9, Renegade. So it's interesting that they get over MIBR and TBD. So we don't know who's finding that last slot. And then
Asia invites.
Okay. So we have to wait and see how that one goes down because you'd be assuming it would probably be like a Ty Lewis night, but also I don't know how the restrictions are with flying at the moment in Southeast Asia or China or anything like that.
Can I just confess something? I have no fucking clue what's going on in Asia.
With Counter-Strike?
Yeah. Like, I literally don't know who the good teams are at this point. Well, I mean, some of them obviously, but
I think Vici did some good stuff. They have that guy named Destroyer. He destroyed some teams as well, and that's it. I think Tyloo was on a 15 series win streak over Vici, and then Vici turned it around.
Yeah, and they won the last couple
series. Yeah,
that's
TLDR.
There was NG that was made. That team,
but they barely have played so far. I think they've only gone together like this early this year.
And Tiger and stuff. But anyway, the other two names, Endpoint, they finally made it into the Pro League, and Team One, which is a Brazilian. Are they Brazilian or are they? I don't want to butcher. Okay, because I know there's sometimes some Argentinians in the mix. I don't want to fucking butcher any of that stuff. But long story short, that's the teams. Are there any names here that we think are missing, boys? Is there anything here glaringly obvious that you're like, oh, where are they?
I think no, they were like the top 16 of the 16 of the top 16 teams at this point, according to the ranking. So I feel like there isn't like anybody obvious missing. It's not like a top 10 team missing from the list or anything. So like people can argue whether somebody like FPX should be there, or whatever. But
someone said Spirit. Someone just said in chat, Spirit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they just made it. They just climbed off their win in DreamHack. So that's going to be, there you go, in DreamHack.
Yeah.
So that's like, sure, but that's very recent. Obviously, we couldn't have expected them to get that invite before.
Yeah, it's always going to be impossible almost impossible to keep your finger on the pulse and have all the top teams at the same time. But this looks pretty good here off the bat.
Potentially, if the Asian team doesn't make it, which I guess is why they didn't announce anyone yet. I guess they're trying to get the team over, trying to get like some deals in place that they can travel to Europe to play. Then we get the Spirit or get some other team to come in as replacements, right?
Sure. All right. Well, I guess we can keep our eyes on who that last team is going to be. But
there's like Extremum, if you wanted to like bank in a bit of more on the Australian side of things, just because they are obviously like a more or better team probably than Renegades would be.
Sure. I think that's one of the hard things to balance, though. We've had this discussion before, like what happens with those guys. They would probably still have points carried across for their world rankings. They would probably still have points for RMR, which I'm sure that they need to find out about. So those kind of things right there are a bit funky. But yeah, it seems like obviously it's a bit hard to represent everybody at the moment based on this whole COVID situation. I'm sure there's been a lot of issues getting certain people out from certain areas and shit like that. But the bit I want to dig into here, and I think that this stuff goes for most tournaments before the tournaments happen, I really don't feel that there's a clear explanation of what everybody can expect, right? So if you scroll down on this to the format graphic on this page, it's on the same page. Let's quickly just read through it, and then I'll explain it if things don't make any sense for people playing at home here. So the group stage, as we can see here, there's 24 teams. It's broken up into 4 separate groups. These are round robin groups, which means per group, there will be 5 matches played for each team. And they're all going to be best of 3s. So you'll play every other team in your group. The winner of each group will progress to the play-in stage. The second and third, respectively, from each group will progress to the round of 12. Now, that's when we're going to look here at the graphic. This is where the graphic kind of comes into play, right? You can see of the 24 teams, 12 of those will progress all the way through to the playoff stage, right? Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, but what I want to talk about here is what's incentivized by this. Now, traditionally, when you have round robin groups, in Australia, we would call it a dead rubber. Now, I know in other parts of the world, you guys, when you say rubber, you're talking about a condom. So when you hear me say dead rubber, you're talking about a broken condom. That's not what I'm talking about. A dead rubber is I guess we would use it in Australia like a tire that, doesn't work anymore. It's useless. It's a waste of space. It's a dead rubber. I guess you could use it the same way. Anyway, contraception is important. Long story short.
Depends on what you want, right?
Yeah. Unplanned pregnancy, we probably don't want that. One thing we do want, though, is to incentivize the group stages. And I want to point out to everybody here that the group stage is incentivized. And it's incentivized because if you do place first, as I've already iterated, you will go to this play-in stage. Now, look at your graphic. At the bottom where it says play-ins, that's the top 4 teams. So first place from each group will play each other in a best of 3. If you win that best of 3, you go straight through to the semis. If you lose that best of 3, you go to the round of 6, which would technically be the quarterfinals in how ESL normally run their events, right? So that, first of all, when you're looking at this, let's start with you, Robin, because I'm not sure if how often you look at the format graphics. You just said before that, each match kind of feels the same. Do you think something like this as a format is valid? Is it maybe too extreme? Does it give too much of a reward for teams who are coming first in their group?
I both like and dislike it.
Okay.
I think the play-in winner gets too far.
Sure.
Like if the play-in winner was round 6 and loser was round 8, then I think it would be a bit better. But now they're like top 4 from winning their group and then one game.
Yeah, we had this conversation a little bit earlier in the day, didn't we, Prof? What was your take on that?
Yeah, I think the reason why it kind of makes sense is that they kind of still need to win one playoff game, which is this like first play, like the play-in stage or whatever. So that kind of propels them to the semifinal. So it kind of makes sense, but it is still pretty deep.
It's huge, right?
When you think of this play-in game as the difference between the play-in game and any other game is you can still lose it and stay in the tournament. So it doesn't have the full playoff single elimination bracket importance that the other games have. That's why I feel like you can still kind of fuck around a bit more there, and there's not that much pressure on you having to win it. And that's generally my why I don't like double elimination formats that much, because it's always, you can always kind of fuck around, lose a game, and then make it later on. I really appreciate that. Like if you lose, you're out. So everything's on the line in every game. That part is kind of weird, but I think we need to see it play out, and then we'll have a better. Like it's not complete garbage. Like it's okay, and then after we see it play out, we can give a better judgment, I feel.
Sure. Striker.
The big problem that I have with it is the fact that you basically can have 2 teams with like the same score in a group where they're both like 4-1, and one of them obviously goes over the other because they beat each other. They beat the other team in a head-to-head, but they had the same score, right? Or there's a 3-way tie, for example, where 3 teams beat each other for the first place.
Yeah.
And they have the same exact record, but one of them gets to skip at least 2 rounds in the playoffs, even though they basically performed the same in the group stage, right?
So, yeah, or minimally better, yeah.
Yeah, the difference between those teams is obviously like minimal. That's why it had to come to tiebreakers to decide who goes through, who gets that first place. Like, and that's obviously if you have the potential to skip 3 rounds of the playoffs of like a tiebreaker, that comes down to like a map 1 difference, which obviously within that match probably didn't make any actual difference.
Yeah,
exactly. So like for them to skip that much is a bit awkward to me, because you'll get to these scenarios where like 2 teams basically had like the same level of success, but one of them ended up top 4 and the other ended up top 8 or top 12 even.
This is where I wouldn't mind getting into a bit of a broader discussion about formats with you guys here, because with what you said, Flusher, I kind of felt the same way. Prof and I had a bit of a back and forth, or it was almost me talking to myself while Prof and I were having a conversation. I was like, yeah, this is good, but also, oh, this isn't so good. And this isn't good, but wait, this is kind of good. And it was like this back and forth that I was kind of weighing up. Like, I like this because, first of all, it incentivizes the group stage, right? So you really want to try hard in the group stage. Like I said, none of those fucking dead rubbers. And not only does it incentivize that group stage for the first place, it does for teams coming second, third. Like, you're going to end up in different parts of the bracket. Look, I look at it and I go, okay, well, we've kind of solved one problem, but we haven't. Now, this is where I want to open it up to a broader conversation, because this one format here, we don't want to see this run at every tournament. Not every tournament is 24 teams. Not every tournament is 16. Not every tournament is whatever, right? My point here is, when we look at this, like, and compare it to other formats that say ESL run or Blast run or whatever, do we think that this one is like on par with the other formats that we're seeing get run, right? Is it just as interesting? Does it offer just as much in terms of competitive nature, but it's just a different format and we're maybe just nitpicking a little bit? Or do we want to kind of see all of these tournaments running comparable formats, so things that are very similar? Like, what are we preferring here? Because we're never going to have a perfect format, and if we do we even want to see that run at all events? I'll maybe start with you here, Striker, on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think some variety is definitely what you want, especially in this kind of scenario where you have like a lot of tournaments in a row, and then you don't want to have the same exact scenario happen in a over and over and over, where you have like the big Yates team GSL group running into like a single elimination playoffs. Then you play like an 8-team GSL group again, where it's like a double elimination format as well, you know. So I think some variety is definitely good.
What do you think, Flusher? What's your preferred? Do you have like a preferred format, and do you like the fact that events are trying different things?
Honestly, I've never like gotten into formats and like thinking about everything.
Okay.
I just play whatever whatever they want me to play, you know.
Sure.
But basically, the thing I want is, like, I want a tournament to be as many days. Like, every tournament is gonna be the same amount of days.
Okay.
How the format is doesn't really matter to me. But some tournaments are like 7 days. This looks like a tournament that might be like 3 weeks.
Yeah,
So
I think it's something like 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like they're so different. Like in formats, it's so different. Like you can play either 7 days or 3 weeks, you know. And I think tournaments should just be around the same length, all of them.
Yeah, I can see that kind of logic, right? Especially from the player's standpoint, and especially when you guys are traveling to events, just to give a little bit for people to kind of see how this format's going to work date wise. I believe, I don't 100%, so don't quote this shit, just use it as rough indicators. But I believe that the way this is going to work, because as you guys can see on the graphic here, there is 4 groups of 6 teams. Those 4 groups of 6 teams will only play for, I think it's like 3, or maybe it's a game a day, right? So each group, let's assume each group, it's a game a day. So each group will play out over those 5 days, maybe 6. But so if you're in group A, you'll be done within the first 5 days. If you're in group B, you'll be done within the next 5 days, right? So if you're getting like breaks, so you'll play for the first 5, then you'll have probably 2 weeks off if you progressed, right? If you play the second group, you'll play that one, then you probably have 1 week off. If you play the last group, okay, then you maybe get a couple of days off, and then you go again. The actual span of the tournament, date-wise, I believe is from the 10th of March until the 11th of April. And that sounds like super long. And this is one of the things I wanted to kind of demonstrate with the calendar that I still haven't fucking gotten ready, is just how these tournaments look expansive on paper, but how the actual playtime for teams is still quite condensed. So I think, let's say the group stage is 5 days, and then the play-in stage is another 2 or 3 days, and then the finals is another 2 or 3 days. At max, I would say that the amount of tournament play that teams be doing, let's say 10 days, 12 days, something like that. This brings us back in, Prof. Do we want to see different formats, or do you want to be more like what Flush is saying, have everything more uniform? So it's kind of like we're going into a tennis tournament. You know the exact amount of players, the exact format, and we know what we're getting, but maybe, we're on a different court.
Yeah, I think that works well for like LANs and stuff like that. I mean, we're just in a weird situation right now with all of the not traveling weird formats that people are trying out, and just like group stages being all over the place, because it doesn't really matter where you are. You're just playing from home anyway. You don't really have to have all of these teams at one place to play. So maybe you can spread out the matches more and stuff like that. You don't have to ship them there and ship them back. So yeah, I think a couple of years back we had that more or less like 6 days tournaments were kind of standards, 5 to 6 days. You had Mondays, nothing ever happened, Sunday grand final, and that was something that we worked with. I think that was more or less okay. But of course, like Pro League and some of these like bigger tournaments that are leagues will always last longer, or will have like a different format to some degree, which I think is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the problem with these long league formats and stuff like that, especially when there are tournaments happening in the middle of them, where a team plays in the first group and then they have 2 weeks off and they play another tournament in the meantime, it feels so disconnected that it doesn't even feel like they were part of the same tournament when they get to the playoffs at that point. And so that's something that I'm not really a fan of as a viewer, just because a tournament should have a certain flow, and like that gets just completely disrupted when you throw in like a 2-week break for a team. And I'm sure for them too as well. Like Flesha was saying, I'm sure a lot of these people are feeling like, okay, it's just like a match in a new tournament. It doesn't really matter what happened 2 weeks ago. We're just playing this now. So, and for viewers, I'm sure it's the same. So that's something that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, I wonder if that's something that we can fix on the storytelling side of things, right? If that's something that's an issue with the way that we're conveying the news, or if it's a way that we're telling the players what the format is, or something like that. Because look, I understand like the dramas that can crop up here, but I think that like having an extended event, and actually it's March 8th till April 11th, I was a little bit off there. Like having these extended events and the round robins and stuff, it offers us something that you don't get to see. Like you play everybody in your group. I know we know the issues with that and ties in groups and all that shit. I don't know. I like it when it's different, because explaining shit is kind of my job. So it's like, well, when I don't have to say, yep, it's a double elimination GSL bracket, win 2 and you're through, and like when I get
that's scared
for me, it's different
job essentially. That's you want more work so you can get paid more, and that's it.
Exactly. Just all the things I don't need.
Carmack, don't change the format anymore. Just same shit every time.
I keep putting in all these dumb requests. Anyway, do we have anything else we want to say on Pro League, or should we keep this one going? All right, we've capped off that. Let's keep it.
I think you just need to stop blue balling viewers about your calendar, man. Just because it's been like
maybe I just keep doing it now. I could like the thing is I was going to show it just then for the Pro League dates, but then I checked the Pro League website and it starts on the 8th. My dates here start on the 10th. So I'm already wrong. So whatever I received, a couple months ago, it's already out of date.